Welcome everyone to our latest webinar on the very topical theme of AI in the classroom. This is certainly a topic that resonates with all of us, and we've had tremendous interest with hundreds of teachers, librarians, and other educators joining us today. So welcome everyone. I'd love to know exactly where in the world you are actually joining us from, so feel free to jot it down in the chat, and we'd love to see a lot of diversity across the globe. While you do that, I will also share the usual disclaimer that we have on all our webinars that this session will be recorded and shared online and via email after. So by attending, you are consenting to this. A Q&A will take place at the end of the session. Please type your questions in the chat. We will endeavor to answer as many as we can. We've left a lot of time for the Q&A to do just that. This is a CPD webinar. You'll receive an email containing a link to a form. Fill out these details to get your certificates. Follow-up communications containing your recording and CPD certificate will be sent at the beginning of next week. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. So let's begin. And it's great to see where everyone's joining us from. And I'm not sure if AI needs much of an introduction. We're certainly at a pivotal turning point where we know AI is here and here to stay. And what do we do with that? So this is really the basis for coming here today and coming together to listen and discuss your hopes, your concerns, and what obstacles AI pose and what solutions AI could proffer. So more specifically, we're here to see how AI could engage your students and be helpful or not to you as educators. I think this topic deserves an open-minded approach as there's still so much to understand. So lucky for us, we are joined by two experts who can guide this conversation so that we can leave this hour's session with a few key takeaways and hopefully knowing a bit more about AI and what it means in the framework of the classroom and education. So just to take a quick pulse check on how you're feeling about AI, we have a quick poll which will pop up in a moment. How do you feel about the rise of AI in education? 4 multiple choice questions. Let us know how you feel so we can read the room. Just give it a second. Great, thanks for all the answers. Lots of curiosity. Perfect, you're in the right place. And it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So again, all those curious questions put in the chat. We want to get to all of them. It's good to see a cross-section of excitement too. This is really a good jumping off point for our discussion. So without further ado, it's a pleasure to introduce our two special expert panelists who are sitting with us today. First, I'm going to let you know all about Mina Wood, who's an international speaker, educational trainer, author, and leadership coach. She is author of the popular secondary curriculum Transformed, Enabling All to Achieve. She supports academies and MATs, including alternative provision providers, conducting peer reviews, curriculum and assessment reviews, and self-evaluation. Mina specializes in the quality of education, inspection, governance, and the leadership of instructional coaching. Welcome, Mina. Now over to Scott. Scott leads teaching, learning, and digital at Basingstoke College of Technology, where he oversees innovative digital education and expert learning coaches who upskill staff. Awarded for AI integration and technology excellence, he has trained over 3,000 educators in 23-24 and advises nationally on EdTech, contributing to AI in education initiatives. A warm welcome to you, Scott, as well. And let's get the conversation going. So really, Mina, maybe we're going to start with you, over to you. How can teachers introduce AI into their lessons for enhancing assessment, teaching, and learning?
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. I'm absolutely delighted to be here this afternoon. I'm really looking forward to this session myself because I'm going to learn a lot from Scott, who is absolutely in the thick of it day to day. Now, my particular interest is how AI is incorporated into the curriculum, having written a book about secondary curriculum Transformed. and the fact that at the moment in the UK, we don't have a strategy going forward, an education strategy. And I am going to say this, in case Bridget Phillipson's listening, I do strongly believe that there is excellent practice globally, for example, in Dubai, where I've seen it. And I believe with the curriculum review that's being carried out now in the UK by the DfE, this is actually so timely. And if we miss this opportunity, given the importance of AI now, then I think we're literally going to fall behind our major competitors in other countries. So and we're failing a generation of young people, most importantly. And for me, the subtitle of my book, Enabling All to Achieve, means I don't want that to happen. And I'm sure Scott shares my feelings about that. So I just want to reiterate, it's interesting, the poll said 1/3 actually use AI already in their teaching or learning. And I just have recent research from a charity called Internet Matters, which found that 54% of children use generative AI tools for their schoolwork and homework. And despite this, 60% of schools have actually not spoken to their children, to their students, regarding the use of AI in this matter. So that is particularly alarming. And obviously, I know there were 3% of our participants who felt they disagreed with the use of AI. So I'd be really interested to see what they have to say. I will be frank, I don't think banning AI in schools will help at all, because, and it won't help students learn, that's the main thing. But I do believe very strongly that if we're going to integrate AI into many aspects of learning, which I think we can profitably for the learners themselves have to be equipped with the ability to analyze and question the information that's in front of them, because we all know AI is not always accurate. We all know about the problems you can have with misinformation, misconceptions, and we have that anyway in terms of our day-to-day teaching. So for me, that's going to be the starting point. Now, I do feel that if we manage to get it right, then it can become a really strong part of our curriculum. And we have to cast our mind back to the internet, which once upon a time was feared by all of us, including me. I was a skeptic initially, but then look where we're at now. So I think by actually weaving AI into learning through a deliberate process of iterative ideation and metacognitive reflection, and I'll unpick that, I do feel we can free out teachers to do just that, to form those human connections with children, the interactions children need from teachers that actually form the core of teaching and learning. Students really have an ability to thrive in tomorrow's world, but I do believe that as AI grows in capability, the balance has to shift from knowledge building to building skills. And that's where I'm going to keep focusing, because in a sense, if we're going to really maximize the importance of AI in learning, and we're going to maximize its use, we've got to look at what skills that our children need. And I'll be honest with you, at the moment, the one thing that is completely missing from our curriculum are skills that children need: the critical thinking skills, the reasoning skills, problem solving, collaborative learning. So I'm just going to give some examples where AI can be used. ChatGPT. So you can, yes, somebody's actually preempted me there. So you can do, but one thing that I do like about ChatGPT, I was going to come on to that example, thank you to whoever it was. But one thing I really like about it is being able to bring subjects and knowledge to life. So instead of reading from a textbook about a World War I soldier's life in the trench, about Picasso's life and his art, for example, a scientist that we are studying at the moment, we can actually develop a stand-in for that particular persona, a debate partner with alternative viewpoints and persuasive arguments. And I think that then brings it all to life, added nuance. And, you know, students interviewing Picasso or a World War I soldier in the trenches really does bring new perspectives. For example, I just want to share with you, a history professor, Benjamin Breen, used ChatGPT to create a Black Death simulator in which students got a very immersive sense of what it might be like to live during the time of the plague, which they wouldn't get from a standard textbook. We know that. So his students generally loved the assignment, but also did some things which really surprised him. For example, some took advantage of the flexibility of AI to lead peasant revolts, or others developed the first vaccines against the plague. And it's hard to really imagine consistently how those kinds of experiences can actually happen today in classrooms. I mean, I may be wrong, and I'd love to hear from others who say, well, no, we're doing that with our children. But frankly, that stimulus and that curiosity and that inquisitiveness is something that children can then play around with. And yeah, someone's saying about modeling answers, right? So the other point I would make, for example, is you can use the AI tutor guidance in that PDF, where you actually might put in 3 different questions and use AI for feedback to develop the answer. For example, electric circuits. Now, that's very different to seeing a textbook or on the whiteboard a picture of a electric circuit and children being told what it is or being asked what it is. I do believe that, children generating questions becomes really, really important and develops literacy. The discussion that ensues develops oracy skills, and this is where we should be going with learning today. We cannot keep relying on the written text. There is obviously new Adobe Firefly, which you can generate images. And, in Key Stage 3, that'd be really helpful. For example, images of lab safety, instead of just telling children about it, you can get them to write their rules, looking at the images. Now, you could say, well, we could do that with a textbook, but, you could put in some images that are actually not correct with AI, and therefore the children really have to think through what they're doing and have to focus on literacy skills to produce those questions or those statements. And then I'm sure a lot of you, those of you who've used ChatGPT, know that you can use them for quizzes, lesson plans, and so on. And, what I really like for me, because I used to be a languages teacher, is the common error analysis. Oh my goodness, the amount of time I used to spend, looking through the common errors in teaching French. And I would have to get them all together, collate them together. Then we went through them painstakingly in the classroom as to what was the correct thing. And I've seen that happen in so many lessons when I was an HMI and also as a head teacher. The common error analysis is fantastic, because if you can get, ChatGPT or a GPT to actually do that, then you free up time for children to start thinking, well, what does replace that verb and that tense? How do we do that? And they can discuss it in French. For me, this is my subject, so I'm getting quite passionate about it.
No,
Okay.
it's really great, Mina. And I think something you said really stuck with me. Is this idea of that we're at this critical juncture right now. And all of us have convened here to kind of understand, as you mentioned, some schools in Dubai are incorporating into the curriculum, but there is a lagging behind in some schools. But at the heart of it, it's how do students practice and find their voice? How do they articulate oracy? How do they use some of the tools that we have? And I'd love, Scott, if I could come over to you now at this point, I'd love to hear what you're doing in your classroom, and if you could share with us a little bit about that, because I think that'd be really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mina, for sharing such wonderful examples. They're really inspiring. I've made a few notes as you were talking, so keep it coming.
Not 2 more if you want them, actually, Scott. And I've not said them, but I'll just put them there. Quizlet's chat robot with the instant feedback that can be provided, through that with the app. And then they can actually look and understand and see where they've gone wrong. I mean, that saves time as a teacher. And the Magic Notes tool, where you can insert articles into Quizlet and receive a summary or outline of the key points. And that is excellent for children who have SEND needs, dyslexia and so on, because you can now, if they're using that, teachers can go around and see what is the problem with the comprehension task. Is it a misconception or is it a lack of comprehension? And that is really key. I honestly feel these are little tools that we can use, you know, in our belt of tools, and can actually free up the teacher. And that's where I suppose I'm going at. So I'll shut up now, Scott.
Free up the teacher, Mina. Yeah, that's it. That's it
That's
for
it.
me.
And that's what
So,
I'm saying, to be a teacher, not to be an administrator. So yeah,
so for us, it was teacher wellbeing that started it all, Mina. So it was
exactly.
it was February 2023. We had Ofsted come and visit us at our college, and we had a staff inset day on that day. The first day that Ofsted come in, but we thought we'll stick to our plans rather than change. And on the stage, we had an AI discussion with a student and some staff. It's heated, it's fair to say, about AI. One of the students, one of my student digital leaders, we always have student digital leaders at our college who hopefully grow into members of staff, and it's the thing I'm most proud of, I think, in my career. Every school's got them, by the way, those brilliant people. If you give them a bit of work experience, you know, perhaps a part-time role, they can be learning technologists. Anyway, Ben, his name was, on the stage, told all of our staff on inset day that his classmates were cheating using ChatGPT, and challenged us as teachers to explain what they were going to do to safeguard him and people like him who wanted to work hard, who wanted to problem solve, iterate, as you say, show the process. And it shook us as a college. It was a genuine existential crisis, as it still is. We then delved deep into this, and I've been ever since then working as best as I can to try and help us to develop this deliberate, mindful, intentional use of AI, because while I think this superpower is too much too soon, it is here, and we do have to try and bottle this lightning. So in May 2023, we turned on the free tool Google Gemini, and I trained all the curriculum staff at our college how to use a particular prompt for schemes of work, lesson plans, and they had to fill in the blanks, how long the lesson was, the subtopics, and it would then format it using Bloom's taxonomy objectives, stretch and challenge, starters and plenaries, and so on. And the summer came along, and then after the summer, staff were reporting back time savings, the fact that they didn't spend as much of their summer doing onerous admin. And in July time, we started to think, okay, well, there might be something in it. We gave just one prompt and one free tool and made it super small and focused. I'll put the prompts in the chat in a minute. And staff started to see that there's something in this in terms of time saving and teacher well-being being the central rationale as to why we were doing this, to free them up to focus on the more human skills development that you've touched on, Mina. Those, what Gerd Leonhard, the futurist, calls core skills: compassion, originality, responsibility, empathy, not soft skills, core skills. So our staff were reporting they were saving time, and then they started to use different prompts, and we collected all these prompts in one long Google Doc, and we had teachers using Google Gemini, again, a free tool, to simplify and explain concepts as if I was 10 years old, relate it to the following topic that the student is interested in, insert topic. And sure enough, our students were having concepts explained to them, like one lad in particular, Simon, who had quite profound learning needs, but loved the films of Miyazaki, was having metaphor, simile, and pathetic fallacy literature terms explained to him using analogies that he could latch onto and connect with. Having things explained and adapted for our Ukrainian refugee learners, translated, broken down step by step, relating to examples that resonate with these learners. We're starting to see our automotive lecturers create exemplars of a service sheet for their students to see what a good one looks like, freeing up the teachers' time to be more present in the workshop and to develop those human, motor, and interpersonal emotional skills that are needed more now than ever. We're starting to see our maths course director, Adrian, use a tool called Notebook LM. This is a great one, Mina. Notebook LM is a tool whereby you can give it a PDF, a file, some slides, and the AI talks only to that file, PDF, or slide deck. So what I mean by that is it's not going to the internet and hallucinating and coming back with strange business. It's only talking to those files. Notebook LM, you could actually give your slides to it and then create a a three-tiered approach to that slide deck for three different tiers of mathematics comprehension. You can ask questions to that slide deck essentially and extract what you want from only that slide deck. And what's more, you can even press a button and it turns that slide deck into a podcast where two AI-generated voices discuss it in a conversational way as a way to consolidate that lesson. And this morning at our college, our math students left their lesson on simplifying fractions and in Google Classroom had this conversational podcast generated from that slide deck as a bit of homework and independent study. We're starting to see these tools used in different diverse ways. And on Monday, I'm meeting with a student called Daria, who's another Ukrainian refugee learner. And the ability to translate and adapt at speed for those refugees last year was one of the most impactful uses of AI we found. The ability to, of course, sense check it. You need an expert at each end with AI, don't you, really? You can't just accept it. But translating her art resources into Ukrainian, then simplifying, explaining them, and relating them to Bauhaus, Frida Kahlo, Basquiat, her favorite artist. I've already started to work on it because I'm meeting her on Monday. I'm excited. Can't wait to show her what we've got for her. So we're
Scott,
starting. Sorry, Matt,
I was
please.
just going to say, no, I was going to say this is really fascinating because it's such a comprehensive list, but a diverse list of there are things there that we can all take away and have new ideas of how AI is enhancing the classroom. And I think it's really good. I'm going to come back to you because we're going to have a second panel of questions, but I'm just going to quickly show, if I may, and then we'll come back to the points you were making, Scott, and Mina as well. We're going to get more of a Q&A. I'm going to spend just a brief few minutes to show how the day can be used in a classroom. And what I'm going to do right now is just quickly share my screen so you can all see it right now. And really, what I want to highlight, because we're talking about AI today, is that our articles on AI offer a unique way to engage your students on a topic that we've clearly seen today already from Scott and Mina is vital. So students can connect up with AI and tech articles as they are subjects that are often of great interest to students, but can't always be found in textbooks. Certainly not at the speed AI moves. And though AI is in some curriculum in some parts of the world, it's just not found in the curriculum everywhere, and that's clear. So the day allows teachers still to make their own curriculum current and relevant by using our resource. Now, the day allows teachers still offers that solution to teachers, giving us students a way in to read, debate. I'm going to show you some of the articles that we've written about AI just here by scrolling and articulate their voice so that they can start speaking with confidence. And I think that's something you've brought up, Mina, quite well, how important that is. Ultimately, this provides students with a feeling of agency. And I think we can all agree that we know from mental health experts that a young person's belief in their own agency is one of the best indicators of positive mental health. So there are many tangible benefits here to using the day. So all of our articles can be found here. But what I'd like to really draw attention to right now is an article we published last week about the first AI classroom. So really, yeah, it couldn't be more pertinent. It couldn't be more topical. And that's what we're looking at right now here. And what I'd like to show you very quickly is how we do what we do at the day. So if we look at one of our articles here, I can show you that we always start our articles with a question. Will robo teachers be better than humans? Now, we do this purposely to start the framework of a debate. And in this article, what we'll also do for your students is highlight any words in bold that we think a student might need help with. That way they can get the definition in real time, just like that. In order to reach as many students as possible, accessibility is very important to us. If you go here to the bottom left of our screen, you have an accessibility widget. So what you can do here is make this dyslexic friendly, change the colors, the contrast, really to meet every learner's needs in the best way possible. So in this article, what we do, short bite-sized paragraphs, so it's very readable for your students, and then we repeat the question, will robo teachers be better than humans? This is to remind your learners why they're engaging with this article and also to set up the debate that follows. And here we provide the intervention by giving a pro statement, the yes, a con statement, the no, and a more nuanced or statement so they can see the issue from possibly both sides. And this is really important in how they start to explore this, the questions right here. So what I'd like to draw attention to right here is our dive in deeper section. And what's really important here is that we're asking students to hone their media literacy. We're asking them to dig a little deeper and not take everything we write as the gospel truth, but to explore this topic from a multiple range of vantage points, much like what we're doing today in today's webinar. So we have two prolific thinkers and their quotes, but we're still challenging students to tell us, what do you think? To help recontextualize this issue from a historical perspective, but also from a more contemporary one. So we have here other ways you can become an expert by clicking in here. But what I really would like to draw your attention to right now very quickly is the day's USP, and that's our 6 steps to discovery. And this is very important because this is an inquiry-led framework that teaches students to connect, wonder, investigate, construct, express, and reflect on the topic they've just read about. So in this case, it's the AI classroom. And what's really valuable here is it can be adapted to your classroom, to your particular learner, to whatever skill you want to draw out in your students. You can do it here over and over. So if you want your students to have the confidence to express their point of view, you'd go to number 4, construct. What is your point of view? And explore that. If you want your students to draw empathy and grow empathy in what other classmates say, go to number 5. Then they have to practice sharing what others believe. Now, by doing these 6 steps, they're going to build those critical skills of thinking and honing other skills as well. So that's really useful here. And I think in the age of AI and deepfakes and misinformation, this is really, really important. So I just wanted to show you some of the things that they can do here, and in short, give you a very quick summary of how things can be found. So in short, the day is a time-saving tool for teachers. That's clear. It's proven to engage all students, including your most reluctant readers. The topics provide a way in, which you can find here at the top toolbar. And there were more than just articles. For your students that are visually led, you can see here we're also daily posters, videos of the day, infographics, and so forth. So what we do here is we have ready-made activities that save time for your teachers with no prep time needed. And again, as I mentioned before, we're really trying to complement your existing curriculum. So you can add in these ideas of AI, fast-paced technology to what you're already teaching in the classroom. Now, the USP of the day is also the people who work at the day. We're a team of writers, editors all across the UK and Europe, and we do all of the writing by hand. So we have all these Spanish, Arabic, Mandarin, German, French. These are all done by native speakers. Really trying to draw that in, that we understand there are some limitations of AI and that a native speaker can capture with precision some of the colloquialisms that we all speak in. So I wanted to draw that out. We are all there, and we're also an all school resource, not just for English, PSHE, citizenship, geography. You can find articles related to all of those subjects that are taught. So the day is versatile and adaptable. It can be used by teachers, students on their own, and it can even be used at home. So your students are logging in and bringing important debates to the dinner table, speaking with mom and dad, speaking with their siblings. By doing this, students are embedding the practice of reading for pleasure and honing their media literacy so they can be successful, whether in the classroom, boardroom, and as active, productive citizens in their communities. So thank you very much for letting me give you a whistle-stop tour. Of course, I'm always available to meet any of the teachers in the audience today for a private session where I can draw out more of what the day does. So wonderful. Without further ado, we're going to go right back to Scott and Mina because we're right in the thick of it, talking about some interesting things. Scott, I'm going to start with you again. And really going back to where we were, what do educators need to be aware of when using AI? I know we've already covered some of it, but what are its limitations for both teachers and students? If you could expound on that.
I think the need for critical thinking skills is more valuable now than ever. the ability to scrutinize and to be skeptical of information. Information diets are, needed for all of us. It's overwhelming. We live in filter bubbles and algorithms that are very pleasant, and those dopamine hits are, in the short term, quite satisfying, but ultimately, in the long term, not so good. We saw the way the first contact with social media in the 2010s had quite an interesting impact on us psychologically as a culture. Our first point of contact with the alien of AI, as Tristan Harris calls it, with part of the Centre for Humane Technology, a fascinating ethical organization that looks at these topics in really focused, deep ways. The second point of contact with this alien form, this AI as it were, is so much more powerful than what social media is. And look at the way social media manipulated and influenced the world in 2015, 2016, and the impact on mental health and many other things. We need to take responsibility as educators. We need to take responsibility. We need to lean into this. We need to show and provide scaffold and guardrails for young people as to how they might use this with intention. So we've made a module, for example, Matt, at our college for all of our students. A 1-hour module shows them how to prompt, shows them how to structure it, shows them what to be mindful of. We've made deep fakes of our principal. So they've got to identify which one is the real principal and which one isn't. I've presented in front of all 1,800 of our full-time learners last week, in fact, and I've showed deep fakes of me, and I had to guess what was the real one. About 70% of them got it wrong, interestingly, after 5 minutes of me talking to them in person, showing them different ways they can use prompts to help them learn, to revise, to simplify, to create personalized resources to help them, to bring writers and theorists to life as simulated versions of the theorists or writers, so you can then quiz and ask questions of them. We're showing them these ways to use AI as a Socratic challenger, using prompts and using different recommended tools. Goblin.tools, Canva, they're the ones we typically use because they're 13 plus friendly, as it were. And we show them how to do it with a quiz at the end to check their understanding. And that's for all of our learners. Ideally, this wouldn't be here right now. Ideally, but it is here, and our young people are using it. We need to show them how they might be able to use it the right way to enhance their learning. And we make it very clear to them what is the right way to use it and what is the wrong way to use it, with clear guidance, examples, and case studies of our students explaining it to them as well. We, in the meantime, a byproduct of all of this is that we are rethinking assessment entirely, Matt. We are rethinking it. We are a vocational college, hands-on, doing things, so we're more aligned with that anyway. But the essay, by default, as the assessment tool of choice, needs to be questioned, it's fair to say. So we want to see witness statements. I want to see vlogs. I want to see podcasts. For example, 2 of our students had read the Day article about AI and actually created a podcast, which might be shared on your website soon.
Love to see that. Love to see that.
Yeah, your colleague Georgie will let us know in the chat what's going to happen with that. But they used AI to research, to discover, and then the light went red, and the podcast microphones were live, and they had to discuss and debate and critically think about this topic from the day. So the day can serve as a tool for initiating these critical thinking discussions. We want to see more active learning, projects, blogs, reflective sites, micro teachers of what to one another. I want to see them actually walking the walk, and we want to be assessing the process rather than obsessing about the product so much. So I observe with our learning coaches, our teachers, and we are continually challenging our teachers to think about those human skills that Mina mentioned. Those human skills need to develop. And if our lessons are not developing those human skills, then what are we doing? What are we doing? What skills are we looking to develop, if not these deeply human skills of compassion, critical thinking, problem solving, all those skills that the World Economic Forum, UNESCO, and all those future skills scanning reports come out with every year, always the top 10, these deeply human skills, they are needed now more than ever in a post-generative AI world. And we as educators need to be facilitating and encouraging the development of that in our classrooms. And I think AI frees us up as educators to facilitate those sessions in our classes.
Absolutely, Scott. Absolutely. Same question to you, Mina. I think it's such a rich topic to explore. What do you think about that? Do you agree with Scott, or do you, I mean, how do you feel? What do educators need to be aware of when using
I was
AI? Or,
coughing.
pardon?
Yeah, I'm all right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what Scott was saying. Obviously, because we started off by talking about the human skills. Now, I mean, critical thinking, digital literacy is absolutely key. And I would suggest that, we don't have to plunge into AI straight away. I think we do need to start with explaining to children why, if we're using AI, we need to give them that platform and say, well, you're going to need these skills. It's the cart and horse, isn't it? Don't just give them the AI and then say, oh, and by the way, you need those skills. You've got to start with the skills to, at the beginning and develop them. Now, and I would literally, I would contend very strongly how many lessons dedicate themselves to developing those skills. I'll be honest with you, when I go around schools, I don't see that many. So people are intent, as Scott was saying, intent on assessment, intent on the end product, intent on exams. And I think even somebody here was talking about the BTEC and, where does it meet the exam criteria? Well, it may not meet the immediate exam criteria, but aren't we preparing children for the world of today? And, England, UK is lagging behind. And our children are not going to be living in the UK for the rest of their lives. So it's a big world out there. So what would I suggest? I would suggest all sorts of activities that encourage questioning and inquiry to build inquisitiveness, teaching argument mapping, promoting evidence-based learning. Now, already in history, for example, we use source-based answers. We have to look at different sources and we have to evaluate which is the correct one, which is not, or what is it telling you about it. It's that analyze, synthesize, and presenting the arguments using evidence, which I think we need now more than ever. We need to introduce students to logical fallacies and cognitive biases. There is a lot of bias in what's going on in AI. I mean, we all know AI is not infallible at all. Of course it isn't. It's got bias because it's being produced by a load of men sitting in Silicon Valley producing stuff that's probably in their own image or whatever. The point being, is it even culturally relevant? So there's so much we could be looking at and saying to children, right, what do you think? So use real world examples. Get them saying, create some questions about the scenario that you're giving them, and get them to have reflection time and to actually solve real life problems. So, for example, in geography, they could be looking at climate change in geography and science and saying, what would they do? AI might present solutions, but actually, what are they going to do? Let's not taint them with what AI is going to say at the beginning. They should learn to clarify their thinking, question sources, and analyze arguments, creating their own arguments. One thing we don't do is give children a voice. We don't get them to ask questions very often. We don't get them to create arguments, and we don't get them to solve problems. I'll be honest with you. When at the moment, and that's not the fault of teachers, that really is around the curriculum. And, Scott was very keen to say about the vocational curriculum. I worked in an FE college, I was principal, and vocational learning was really, was fantastic because it opened up a different way of learning. And I think we need to incorporate that hands-on learning into our classrooms now to prepare our children. And so one way of doing it, and we can do it at an early age with Padlets. I don't know, I assume a lot of you are familiar with those. That's a digital tool. It teaches questioning, critical thinking, reasoning skills, and collaborative learning. And I think, again, I'll reiterate, and I can't reiterate it more than anything really, is to say that unless you can get children to start analysing, evaluating, and applying information and make informed decisions, we're not going to be able to get them to use AI safely. And for me, safety in using AI and not pursuing misconceptions. Scott actually mentioned the 2015-2016 debacle really in this country with social media. We need safety for for children. We need to be able to not have a generation of children who are duped by what they're reading. In Finland, I will say, there was such concern about Russian infiltration of AI, not AI, but social media, that every school in Finland now has incorporated into its curriculum the teaching of critical literacy and digital literacy. So children actually are developing those skills from primary up to secondary. And for example, if we're moving on with another example I'd like to give you is, and some of you may know that hinge questions. I mean, these are straightforward. You can use, I mean, I've seen teachers using them, but they are there to develop misconceptions, to actually identify miscomprehension and so on, because you're giving children different answers and none of them are particularly correct. You might have a combination of two that are correct. It's that kind of skill they need when they use AI. AI in the flipped classroom, that's another way. So using I think Khan's Academy have now gone on, decided to go into this. AI in the flipped classroom. So actually getting children to learn new concepts at home through videos, other digital resources, AI, and so on. But when they come into the classroom, that's their time for interacting with teachers and actually bringing forward what they need. So moving from knowledge to skills at home and actually making sure children use that. So just to sum up, for me, encouraging questioning, curiosity, fostering discussions, evaluation, problem-solving activities, encouraging metacognition, encouraging creative thinking, and providing scaffolding and support, which I think we do need to be doing with children because it is a developmental process. And as Scott said, you have children, he had a child, I think, with profound learning difficulties who got so much out of the AI generating, I think it was a video or something that would kind of was his passion, that you then, you actually lighted that fire within that child, didn't you? That curiosity for learning through something that was dear to him. And that's what I think we could be doing with this. So yeah, I think bring it on. And quite honestly, the safety side of it. One thing I would say, and I'm sure Scott's got other views on this, but you could use a structured framework, for example, an AI decision tree, which has got a red, a RAG rating, red, yellow, green light system. And if schools could then say, well, you can use this one safely without needing support, or you can't, or supervision, or that one isn't like the yellow one, we need to be looking at it a bit more guarded, and the red one maybe not. So I think someone mentioned the whole, how do you actually filter through all the different all the different AI that's out there, and generative AI in particular. So that's the way I believe that, if we don't do that, and if we don't present digital literacy in our classroom and critical literacy, we can't empower our students to become, to actually become more human-centric, reflective, and thoughtful. That's my view.
No, I mean, you've given us some really distinct takeaways, and we're going to find a way to maybe synthesize what you and Scott have said today so that the audience can take that away. That's been really helpful. And actually, your recap just there kind of sets us up really well for the Q&A, because the questions are coming in and they're really interesting and varied. And maybe I could put one to Scott right now so we can tend to as many as we can that are coming in. So keep the questions coming. We'll try to answer all of them. Samuel has asked a very interesting one. Is it right to discourage students to use AI in English or literacy tasks? So I just wanted to know what you thought about that.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? That the students could learn the baseline of literature knowledge and reading and writing skills, and then earn a license to access their AI at age 16. That would be lovely and ideal, is the truth. The lived reality is that Snapchat AI is available as the first thing they see when they log into that app 10 times a day. And so we can discourage it, absolutely, or we can try to be proactive and positive and show how they might use it effectively. So for example, we've got beauty therapy students at our college, and last year they were revising for one of their many exams, and one of the exams was about tanning. And of course, different tanning needs for different humans. We've got different melanin levels, as it were, and we respond differently to tanning. And one of the girls was using a prompt in Snapchat AI to revise using examples that related to her exam, because she put in the brackets that her exam, what it was about, beauty therapy. And then she said, now give me examples that relate to Chelsea Football Club, because she liked Chelsea Football Club. And Chelsea Football Club, it's all sorts of diverse skin tones there. You've got Cole Palmer, you've got Raheem Sterling as it was back then. And she had to think about how I adjust things for different people if I'm working tanning them for a fashion event, for example. And using that prompt helped her to develop her English literacy skills as part of her English revision, but also prepared her for her beauty exam as well. And that actually developed and helped her. And listening to her before and after talk about how that was a great assistance made me think maybe there's something in this in terms of developing those literacy skills, because she was talking in a back and forth in this Socratic dialogue that made me think this isn't, this passive consumption. She was using it in this really interesting way. We just gave her the prompt to get her going. And I think it can be a really fascinating way to bring to life Atticus Finch, or to bring to life any number of different characters for people to engage and talk to enhance their understanding. And with Notebook LM, to bring to life a podcast of a text or a slide deck, to really think about it in a multimodal manner, audio as opposed to just written. Me, at the age of 41, have realised in the last year or so that listening to things turned into audio is massively useful for me as a way to comprehend. Of course, we are not just one type of learner, as we know. The VAC model was disproven many years ago as this simple visual, auditory, kinesthetic way of thinking of us as humans. We are multitudes, aren't we? But certainly, audio is a great way for me to get into a new topic, I find. And then as I'm listening to audio, I make my notes and I digest it that way. We can convert things, English literature as well, into audio as a way for people to latch onto things in a way that perhaps they wouldn't have had access to before. And I think that is something in English literature that could be really useful, the creation of podcasts and audio from the texts.
Wow, that's really fascinating. The way, blows open the possibilities of AI to individualize learning to particular learners, to capture. These are learners that could be left behind thinking the curriculum's not working for me, and all of a sudden AI says something differently. So that's really interesting. Mina, I have one directly for you, if I may. With the increased use of AI, how do we ensure that teachers are confident in assessing the authenticity of students' work, knowing that it may be partially informed or created using AI tools?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. My phone rang. Digital intrusion there. Could you just repeat that question again?
100%.
It wasn't AI either. Okay, go on.
With the increased use of AI, how do we ensure that teachers are confident in assessing the authenticity of student work, knowing that it may have been partially informed or created using AI tools?
Yeah, I think Scott would probably have more to say on that, because there are software available which can actually help. And that's why I was saying earlier on about having a RAG system, which means that you can actually, using that software, you can work out whether a child has literally plagiarized and used the entire AI text or whatever. But I think also if you did it in two ways. So first of all, if they've done an assignment and you want to find out, whether, oh yes, you've got guardrails as much as possible. Yeah. So if you want to find out whether it is their authentic work, then why not actually get them to write some questions about what they produced, and then see whether, put it into AI again and see if the answers come up the same, because they probably won't. That is the whole point, isn't it? That I think somebody said earlier on that when you look at the, there's a lot of repetition, for example, with quotes when a literature essay is written. I have seen a couple, we were talking about English literature, and obviously English and languages is something I'm particularly keen on myself, my subject. So, but, if you can actually be a bit more imaginative in the way you do things. So ChatGPT, for example, you can enter in a specific criteria into that and get students to actually think, for example, of specific age groups, and then see, what comes back. And I think that's the problem we're having now, is that it's not one size fits all with AI. And that is the issue, that we need to put in those safeguards. We need to make sure that with children not plagiarizing like they do a lot with internet. And we need to make sure that actually there are some checks and balances in place with teachers. And the problem I have is, unless you actually have some form of strategic plan from the government, you know, this is not a political consensus thing, it's just me saying you've got to have something there which says we will incorporate it and we will do it in this way. And schools do need to be able to access, you know, safeguards for children so that children are not actually being exposed to further misconceptions and just using AI as a way of, it's an easy, you know, I'll do it now. You can do my homework for me tonight, and then I can go and play on a game or watch telly or whatever. So I do believe that is important, that we are putting in those checks and balances and making sure we're not getting that sort of repetition coming into place and misconceptions. The other thing to say about the literature that Scott, you know, the question that Scott had, I did say at the beginning that you can use you know, you can bring in characters, personas, which children can interact with. So yeah, why not Charles Dickens? You know, get them to ask questions. I mean, you see in lessons children writing copious amounts about A Christmas Carol. And I think to myself, yeah, and, you know, what are they getting out of this? I do wonder. Well, turn it on its head. Get them to write questions to Charles Dickens about why he wrote the book. You know, who are these characters and did he know them in real life and so on? Far more interesting. And children with curiosity will do that, especially younger children. There'll be no stopping them.
That's a really interesting thing. And I can see Scott's answering some of the questions in the chat, which is wonderful. And I wonder if there's a way we can, as I said, collate all these questions, put the answers that you've both given, and then send it to everyone in attendance, because there are numerous, at this point, numerous takeaways. Here's maybe another question, just to piggyback off what we've just spoken about. Does AI increase the digital divide of social inequality? Not all students will have easy access to new technology within the home.
Yeah, I agree. Shall I just start, or does Scott want to say something? I totally agree with that. It's not a leveler from that point of view, because children might not have access to it. And with the current mobile phone ban that we've now got in by the government, which I think is good in some ways, because as a head teacher, I incorporated it in my school. But I think there is a lot to be said for children. Sadly, in this country, it's not necessarily going to happen that children are bought iPads that they can be used in every lesson and then left at school. But obviously, in Dubai, where I was working with schools, they did have those iPads, so they could take them out at the relevant time and then put them back and so on. But ideally, that's what we need to be moving towards. When people say, you know, teaching needs to be better resourced, yes, it does. But an amount of, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands we spend on textbooks, let's try and invest something in the learner, and let's try and get them some iPads that they can bring out safely, use because they've got the right filters on them, and then perhaps leave in those classrooms. So the text, rather than textbooks, we've got iPads safely locked up and so on. It is a big mindset change. And yes, it is a way that I think, you know, it's not going to happen in every school. It's not going to happen for every child, but it does need to happen if we're genuinely thinking about leveling up, and we can use AI to its full, you know, optimize its usage.
Wow, that's really interesting. And AI is so much of the moment. I mean, it's so much in this moment right now. But Scott, if I could go over to you, can we even start to consider what's the future of AI in education? Where are we going?
Personalization of learning is the North Star, really, Matt. It's what we really want, is the truth. I've seen it. I've just that's my lived experience over the last 18 months or so, helping out teachers, just seeing students connect it to their interests, seeing them light up when they can see a maths concept simplified and explained using metaphors or examples from the chassis and torque of their favorite car, for example. Or whether it be step-by-step how-to guides on how to create a particular patisserie dish in our hospitality lessons that are then turned into audio files for them to listen to while they're going over the process. I think the reality is that this is happening in pockets already,
Mm,
and it's really something that we can, with free tools, enact now. The real frustration is the fact that we are seeing some students who are using this superpower, as it were, and being able to really expedite and personalize their learning experience, while others are perhaps are being left behind. And that does come from a lack of equitable access, as it were, to digital tools. But not always only that is the truth. I mean, last week, 1,800 learners I in person spoke to about AI. When I looked into that audience, I think 50% of them were into it and interested. I know it was induction week, and it's another bloke talking about things they've got to do in the first week of college. So that is a variable. But 50% of them, just watching their body language and the way they were not engaging with it, I just thought, okay, maybe they're just not ready for this. This is overwhelming.
yeah.
This is too much. And they might not be leaning into these opportunities in the next year or so. But those that do lean into this, they are like Rawan is one of our engineering students. And last year, the way she was taking certain prompts, revising for her T-level engineering, relating it to her favorite plane, an Airbus plane that she knows specifically, and
Mm,
having her revision materials personalized and explained for her, and seeing her results compared to some of her peers, just made me think how frustrating that we can't just enact this personalization straight away. Rawan is bright as a button, lent into it, and was embracing all the opportunities for using AI to do this. Others in her class were either lacking the maturity or the independence to do so.
mm,
So it isn't just access to the kit, as it were,
mm,
because many of our young people do have a smartphone. A lot of these tools that we've discussed are free, in fact. It's that confidence, it's that maturity, it's that willingness to embrace the wonder and curiosity that is needed to get the best out of this. That's what I'm noticing more to more, is the truth. I think that is the real disparity in our learners.
Yeah.
mm.
Wow. And Mina, future of AI, what are your thoughts as we close up?
No, I agree with Scott. I think I said earlier on that until you actually develop the skills in the children, as Scott quite rightly said, that what Scott's alluding to, maturity, confidence, and so on, it's not there because they have been passive learners. They have been vessels to be filled with knowledge. And until you move away from that, and move into in lessons, it's about the learner and the learner developing all-round skills, the human skills, the problem solving, the collaborative learning, the whole host of skills we've been talking about this session. We actually saying to them, well, you can use AI. Well, of course they do. They use Snapchat all the time. So that's nothing new, but it's about saying, we want you to use it in a structured way to actually enhance your learning and you as a person. So when you go into the workplace, later in life, you are well equipped in the workplace, as Scott was saying, the World Economic Forum and others, are all saying that we're OECD results, league tables show that we're lagging behind. So we need to develop a generation of young people who really are into AI for the right reasons and using it to actually optimize their learning, but not just their learning, but themselves as individual people, in a way that's not going to be, that's not happening at the moment. And I'm bringing back those stats I gave you at the beginning, there's like, what was it? I said 50 something. Yeah, I'm just going to look at it again. 54% of children use generative AI tools for their schoolwork and homework. 60% of schools have not even spoken to their children about using it. So someone said earlier on, how do you know they've not used AI and plagiarized? Well, you don't. If it's not in your curriculum and it's not actually being taught, it's not being and teachers are not being trained up to know what it is, then obviously you're not. You're missing the bus on this one, if I may say. I think if there's any such expression. So yeah.
Mina, I just on that point, the thing we're finding with a lot of our staff is this idea that if a machine can answer it perfectly in seconds, then is the assessment fit for purpose anymore? Are the skills really being developed? And once we reflect on that, then we change the assessment, then we start to open up opportunities where AI can be used as a way, as a Socratic challenger, as a way to help us learn. But if the AI can just do it like that, then is the assessment fit for purpose anymore? And that's this strange liminal space is where we find ourselves. But it's exciting, right? The potential of what might be next.
Huge excitement and passion for it. And I think seeing people's comments there, it clearly is an exciting, we're at an exciting threshold. It's absolutely wonderful to see some of those, comments and really intelligent responses, that people want to embrace it, but obviously it's scary, which is understandable. So, but how do they do it? I think it's the how and getting that direction that is needed now going forward. That is the future. We need to be training up the educators before we can actually do it with the children. That's my view.
And I think we're just starting the conversation. There's so much more ground to cover, and I think this begs a continuation of this webinar at a future date because it's been so valuable.
Yeah.
The amount of information we've been able to cover, the key takeaways that we'll share with other teachers. So I really want to thank both of you really for adding so much to this, and also the most active audience we've had today. It's been electric watching all your questions, and thank you, Scott, for getting to so many of them, and Mina for answering all of them. And we'll find a way to distill this in a way so you have something concrete to share with your schools, your colleagues, and everyone else. And on that note, I just want to let you know that we will be sending you a CPD certificate on Monday, along with a recording of this webinar. Now, this webinar, all the webinars we've done this year, they live on the day, can be watched over and over again, shared with people, www.theday.co.uk. Please take a look. We'd also like to mention that we will be hosting another webinar next month, the focus on the challenges international schools face across the world, with some tools, distinct tools like today, for you to take away. So please look out for that. But I'm very excited to say we're offering 20% off our memberships at the day to all the participants who joined us today and stayed in the audience. So thank you so much. This is a special limited time offer. We'll extend it to you simply for being with us today. Contact us now at the day. We'll be happy to send you a quote immediately. The offer is good for September only, so please don't delay. Say hi. Thank you again, Scott and Mina. I wish we could talk all evening, but we can't. I wish everyone in the audience a wonderful weekend, and also to you, Scott and Mina.
Thank you very much for being
Thank you.
best.
Lovely
Take
spending
care.
the afternoon with you all. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.